So today we will discuss the structure of chloroplast. So what is chloroplast? Actually, chloroplast is a cell organelle which is involved in the process of photosynthesis. It is the largest cell organelle. It is the largest cell organelle and it is the site of photosynthesis. It is a site of photosynthesis, right? So let's look at the structure of chloroplast in order to understand the photosynthesis. As I told you before in previous video, that first we'll be looking at the structure of chloroplast and then mitochondria, and then we'll be moving towards the photosynthesis, right? So now let's us discuss the structure of chloroplast, right? So as you can here see, let me draw this. So chloroplast is actually a double membrane organelle, right? Let me draw this. Consider that this is the first membrane of the chloroplast, right? Here it is an other membrane of the chloroplast. It is another membrane of the chloroplast, and here these are some disc-like structures, right? These are some disc-like structures. Basically, chloroplast is in green color, but in order to that you can understand it quite clearly, so I'm making this with white color, right? And this is the fret membrane. Okay, see there is another disc-like structure, and here we are also having, like, I'll explain you each and everything. Just wait a minute, let me draw the diagram so you can clearly understand what I'm saying about, right? So this here is another. Now okay, let me explain you under this. Okay, this membrane is known as outer membrane. This is known as outer membrane, and this one is known as inner membrane. This is known as inner membrane. This is known as inner membrane, right? Now here these structures, this whole structure is known as thylakoid structure, right? This whole is known as grana. This whole is known as grana. This whole structure. Okay, here you can see this, same as in case of this is known as grana, right? And this, if we talk about only single one, right, we will say that it's a thylakoid. We will say that it is a thylakoid. This is known as it is the thylakoid. Like the whole structure is known as grana, but if we talk about single one, that is known as thylakoid, right? So now let's talk about this one membrane, which is this one. This is known as intergranal membrane. Intergranal membrane. This is known as intergranal membrane. Why it is known as intergranal membrane? Because it is joining two grana with each other. That's the reason that it is known as intergranal membrane. And this membrane is also known as this same membrane is also known as fret membrane. This is known as fret membrane. Same, this is also known as fret membrane, right? Here we are having another membrane over here, which this membrane is known as interstromal membrane. This is known as let me write over here, interstomal membrane. right? This is known as interstromal membrane. Let me draw this, color this, right? This thing is known as interstromal membrane, right? And this here, this is known as intergranal lamella, or you can say intergranal membrane, and also known as fret membrane. It's also known as fret membrane, right? Okay, so here actually this chloroplast is filled with a liquid, or you can say a colloidal solution, which is known as, let me, okay, this is actually, I can't color it right now because it will take so long. This is filled with a colloidal solution basically, right? This chloroplast, here you can see, maybe it's right. So that is known as, this is basically known as stroma. That is known as, okay, this is known as stroma. This is known as stroma. This is the fluid, right? Fluid, or you can say it is a colloidal solution. So the chloroplast is filled with the colloidal solution, which is known as stroma. So this, like this chloroplast contains its own DNA. It contains its own DNA, which is known as, okay, I'm writing over here, it is known as double-stranded DNA. Double-stranded DNA, and it is circular. This circular, and this is known as plastidome. This is known as plastidome. So the like chloroplast contain its own DNA, which is circular DNA, and is known as plastidome, right? This chloroplast contain its own ribosomes. It contains its own ribosomes too. Okay, you can see it contains its own ribosomes too. Okay, let me draw here. It contains its own ribosomes too. So here the ribosomes are of 70S, right? The ribosomes are of 70S. Okay, you will wondering that what is this S? S stands for Sweetberg unit. Actually, it's a unit for sedimentation. There is a process of sedimentation, and in that case here, okay, there's an interesting fact over here that in cytoplasm, the ribosomes are of 80S, right? But in this chloroplast, the ribosomes are of 70S. Like this, chloroplast contain its own ribosomes, its own DNA, right? Here there is a most abundant protein in the whole organism, which is known as, like, consider this is that one protein, which is known as rubisco. That is rubisco. That is rubisco. Rubisco is the most abundant protein, and it is basically like, it is an enzyme. It is enzyme. So enzymes are made up of basically protein. So rubisco is the most abundant protein found in all living organisms, right? So here we got this stroma, this DNA, grana, outer membrane, inner membrane, ribosomes, and okay, there are some enzymes also present over here. Okay, in this, okay, I have talked about this enzyme. This is a rubisco enzyme. Okay, I hope this basic structure is clear to you. So now let's talk about when we see this thylakoid structure in a microscopic form, right? So let me show you the diagram in order to make your concept clear. So here you can see the diagram of chloroplast. Here you can see the diagram of chloroplast, so we can easily see. So as you can see over here, this is, okay, this is your outer membrane, right? This is your inner membrane. This is, okay, let me draw a diagram. This is your inner membrane, right? Here we are having this okay, here we are having this stroma. As I said, there is a fluid, right? And here it is known as grana, right? This whole structure, this whole is known as grana, and this only one is known as thylakoid, right? And here you can see, here it is stromal lamella. This here is, okay, the space between outer membrane and the inner membrane, there is a space, right? That is known as intermembranal space. That is known as intermembranal space. Okay, I hope it's clear to you. Let me show you the intermembranal space over here, right? Okay, here this space basically is known as intermembrane space, right? This is known as intermembranal space, right? Now let's talk about the microscopic structure of this grana, right? Okay, let me make this over here. Okay, consider that this is the grana. Here I am drawing the grana single, right? This is the whole grana. When we see it in the microscopic form, like consider that we are seeing this in a microscopic structure, right? Let us, this whole is known as grana, right? And this whole only one is known as thylakoid. This only one is known as thylakoid. Let's zoom into this. Okay, before moving, okay, in this thylakoid there is basically a colloidal solution in this, which is known as lumen. It is known as lumen. There is a solution inside the thylakoid which is known as lumen. So now let's zoom into this thylakoid, right? Okay, let me draw this over here. Consider this is one thylakoid, this is another thylakoid, right? This is something, and over here we are having, like, it is filled with the lumen. It is filled with lumen, right? Okay, so in this portion is known as apparest region. This is known as apparest region. What does that mean? Apparest region means the place where these both thylakoid are joined to each other, right? And the place where they are not joined is known as non-apparest region. That is known as non-apparest region. So the place from where these both thylakoids are joined to each other, that is known as apparest region, and the place where these both are not joined, that is known as non-apparest region, right? So in this stroma, like in this thylakoid structure, some photosystems are present. Some photosystems are present. What are those photosystems? Some photosystems are present. Basically, photosystems captures light. It captures light of certain wavelength, basically. So over here, photosystem 2 is present. Photosystem 2 is present, which absorbs the light of 680 nanometer. Which absorbs the light of 680 nanometer, right? This photosystem 1. When we talk about this photosystem 2, over here, like over this region over here, basically there is present photosystem 1. Photosystem 1, it is also present over here. Here photosystem 2, here photosystem 1. Okay, here photosystem 1 is present, which is responsible to capture the light of 700 nanometer, which captures a light of 700 nanometer. So I hope this is clear. And over this, in this photosystems, pigments are present. And in these photosystems, pigments are present. What are present? Pigments are present. So actually our, like, this chloroplast is known as contasome. This is known as contasome. Okay, what does that mean? Conta means what? Okay, we know that light travels, like light travels in form of photons. What are photons? Packets of energy, and these are quantized, like they are fixed. Photons are quantized, or you can quantized. They are fixed. They contain fixed amount of energy. And zoom means to attract, means they are actually, this chloroplast is there to capture the light. The basic function of this is to, chloroplast is to capture light. That's why it is known as contasome, right? Now let's talk about the pigments, right? Let's talk about the pigments. Basically there are two types of pigments. Number first is accessory pigments. What does that mean? Accessory pigments means helping pigments. Accessory pigments means helping pigments, which include chlorophyll B, C, D, E, chlorophyll B, C, D, E, carotenoids, xanthophyll, lycopene, and there was another which I forgot the name, by mistake, right? So these are the accessory pigments, which are chlorophyll B, C, D, E, carotenoids, xanthophyll, and lycopene. Actually, the work of these accessory pigments is to capture the light and give this light to necessary pigment. So the necessary pigment here we are having, okay, we have another type of pigment is known as necessary pigment, which is necessary pigment, and that is chlorophyll A. That chlorophyll A is known as necessary pigment. So what's the work of this accessory pigment? Actually, these accessory pigments capture the light and give that light to chlorophyll A. Chlorophyll A also absorbs the light. It doesn't mean that it will not absorb light. It will absorb, but these accessory pigments will absorb light and gather it and will give to chlorophyll A. And basically we will study this. There is light harvesting complex, reaction center. These are all of the things which will come in the photosynthesis, and I'll be discussing that. So to discuss that's why I have made the video on the chloroplast. So I hope this is clear to you, right? If you are having any kind of questions, you can ask me. I'll be glad to answer you guys.